Imagine waking up in the richest city on earth. Ships from Africa unload grain by the ton. Merchants from India sell spices worth their weight in silver. Silk from China arrives after traveling thousands of miles across deserts and mountains. Massive aqueducts deliver fresh water. Roads connect entire continents. The army protects trade routes stretching across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. And every day, free grain is handed out to hundreds of thousands of citizens. Life is good. Really good. This was Rome. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled nearly 20% of the world's population. It ruled over 60 million people. It commanded the largest economy on earth, and for nearly 200 years, it enjoyed an era so prosperous that historians gave it a name, Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Yet within a few centuries, that same empire would be devastated by inflation, population collapse, political chaos, and foreign invasions. The greatest superpower on earth would become a shadow of itself. So what happened? How does an empire go from unimaginable wealth to economic collapse? And more importantly, could it happen again? To answer that question, we need to go back to the beginning. 753 BC. Rome is nothing more than a tiny settlement along the Tiber River. A collection of huts. A few thousand people. No empire. No Colosseum. No legions. Nothing that would suggest it would one day dominate the known world. For centuries, Rome slowly expanded. First through alliances, then through conquest, then through war. Lots of war. And unlike modern nations, conquest wasn't just about power. It was profitable. Extremely profitable. Every victory brought new farmland, new mines, new trade routes, new taxpayers, and most importantly, new slaves. The turning point came in 146 BC. Rome defeated its greatest rival Carthage. After 3 brutal Punic Wars, Rome emerged as the undisputed power of the Mediterranean. The rewards were enormous. Spain's silver mines poured wealth into Roman coffers. North Africa became a breadbasket. Greece opened access to valuable trade networks. Suddenly, Rome wasn't just winning wars. It was becoming rich. Very rich. Merchants crossed the Mediterranean carrying goods from every corner of the known world. Spices from India, silk from China, amber from Northern Europe, ivory from Africa, silver from Spain, tin from Britain. The Roman economy exploded, and the average citizen experienced luxuries that previous generations couldn't imagine. For the first time, a person in Rome could enjoy products that originated thousands of miles away. The empire had become the center of global commerce. But trade wasn't the foundation of Rome. Agriculture was. Nearly 90% of the population lived in rural areas. Most were farmers. Small farmers. Families worked their own land, produced their own food, and lived relatively independent lives. At least at first. Because Rome's success would eventually destroy this system. As the empire expanded, wealthy elites accumulated more and more land. Small farms disappeared. Large estates, called latifundia, emerged. These enormous agricultural operations relied heavily on slave labor. And slave labor was cheap. Much cheaper than free workers. As a result, small farmers struggled to compete. Many lost their land, others abandoned it. Thousands migrated into cities looking for opportunities. Instead, they found dependency. To maintain stability, Rome introduced subsidized grain, then free grain. Hundreds of thousands of citizens became dependent on government support, bread and circuses, food and entertainment. Keep the population fed, keep the population distracted, keep the population calm. For a while, it worked. The city of Rome became the first city in human history to exceed 1 million inhabitants. The empire reached its greatest territorial extent under Emperor Trajan in 117 AD. Everything appeared unstoppable. But underneath the prosperity, problems were growing. Because Rome's success created a dangerous illusion. The empire believed growth would continue forever. Yet growth based on conquest has one obvious limitation. Eventually, you run out of places to conquer. By the 2nd century, Rome's expansion slowed. The easy victories were gone. The rich provinces had already been conquered. The flow of plunder began drying up, but government spending didn't. The army still needed funding. The bureaucracy kept growing. Public projects continued. Welfare programs expanded. And every year the empire became more expensive to operate. Soon Rome faced a problem every government eventually encounters. Spending was rising faster than revenue. There were two options: raise taxes, or create more money. Roman emperors chose the second option. Starting under Nero and accelerating under later emperors, Rome began reducing the precious metal content of its coins. At first it seemed harmless. A coin still looked like a coin. Citizens barely noticed. But each new batch contained slightly less silver, slightly less gold. The government could now produce more coins from the same amount of metal, which meant more spending, without higher taxes, at least temporarily. It was an ancient version of money printing. And like every inflationary policy in history, it worked. Until it didn't. Prices slowly rose, then rose faster. Workers found their wages buying less. Savings lost value. Trust in the currency weakened. Yet Rome kept debasing again, and again, and again. By 250 AD, many Roman silver coins contained only about half their original silver content. By 275 AD, some contained less than 5%. The currency was collapsing, and unfortunately for Rome, that wasn't the only problem. Nature had arrived. In the form of plague, beginning in 165 AD, the Antonine Plague swept through the empire. For 15 years, it ravaged cities, villages, and military camps. Millions died, perhaps 10% of the entire population. Then came another disaster. The plague of Cyprian. Once again death spread across the empire. Entire communities disappeared. At its peak, thousands died every day in Rome alone. The consequences were catastrophic. Fewer workers, fewer taxpayers, fewer soldiers. Less production, lower economic output, higher costs. The government needed more money than ever. Yet there were fewer people left to provide it. The death spiral had begun. As population declined, abandoned farms spread across Italy. Cities shrank. Economic activity slowed. Many citizens simply walked away, returning to rural life and self-sufficiency. Trust in institutions faded. Trust in money faded. Trust in government faded. Meanwhile, threats gathered beyond Rome's borders. Germanic tribes pressed against the frontier. Persians challenged Roman power in the east. Military spending exploded. Taxes increased. Inflation accelerated. Political instability followed. And once political instability arrives, economic recovery becomes nearly impossible. During the crisis of the 3rd century, Rome experienced 26 emperors in only 50 years. Some ruled for months, others for weeks. Many were assassinated. Civil wars erupted constantly. Each new ruler promised stability. Each inherited a weaker empire. By this point, Rome wasn't really collapsing because of one problem. It was collapsing because of all of them. Inflation, population decline, political chaos, military pressure, excessive spending, heavy taxation, declining productivity. Every weakness amplified every other weakness. The empire was slowly consuming itself. And when the barbarians finally arrived, they weren't destroying a healthy civilization. They were finishing off a dying one. The real collapse had already happened. Not at the gates, but inside the economy, inside the currency, inside the institutions, inside the population. Eventually, power shifted east to Constantinople. Trade networks weakened. Cities shrank. Long-distance commerce collapsed. Europe entered centuries of fragmentation. The age of Rome was over. But Rome's story remains relevant, because the lessons never changed. Rome thrived when it maintained stability, protected trade, encouraged production, and expanded opportunity. It declined when spending outpaced resources, when currency lost credibility, when government became too expensive, when population shrank, and when political instability destroyed confidence. The Roman Empire wasn't destroyed in a single day. It wasn't destroyed by a single invasion. It wasn't destroyed by a single emperor. It was weakened gradually. Year after year, decision after decision, crisis after crisis, until the strongest civilization on Earth could no longer support the weight of its own system. And that's what makes Rome so fascinating. Because its collapse wasn't just a historical event. It was a warning, a reminder that even the richest societies can decline. Even the strongest currencies can lose trust. And even the most powerful empires eventually discover a simple truth. No civilization is too big to fail.